Hi, this is Lorena, and I wanted to do a tutorial on how to quilt on a domestic machine. The things you're going to need are gloves, and they're called Machingers, and I can't say the name. You're also going to need a super slider, your quilting foot, and I really recommend you have your extended table. Um, the slider has a hole where you will put it on your machine. It prevents friction. And here you see me removing my foot so that I could put on my quilting foot. You're also going to need a flathead screwdriver to unscrew that screw so you could screw your quilting foot back on. And here I'm putting the slider on the machine, and it's where the needle goes up and down. I also recommend that you practice on removing your feed dogs. You could use them either up or down. I noticed for me having my feed dogs up worked, but a lot of people recommend having them down. And the machine gingers, what they're good for is they create a friction for you to be able to grab the fabric and maneuver the fabric. They really do help. I try to do this without them, and it's really hard to grip the fabric and move it. And so here I'm quilting and I'm doing an arc. And the reason you want to do an arc is because on featherings you do a lot of arc work kind of in certain areas. And so here I'm doing the arc, and I went and did it one way, and here I'm doing it another way. And these are little kind of warm-ups you could do, practicing the arc. And then after this, we're gonna practice the letter C, the cursive C. The reason you want to practice the cursive C is because right here, after you do the first area of the C, you quilt back on the same line. And this is a great practice on keeping you and teaching you how to follow a line after you've created it. And it's really necessary on quilting. And the better quilter you are, the more consistent you are in following that line. Now, let me say this. I had already been practicing for a good 30 minutes before I started working on this little sheet. So my C's, when I got on this little machine, did not look like this. They were really messy because I didn't have the rhythm on how to work the machine and work on a domestic machine because normally I don't quilt this way. But the good thing about this is it teaches you how to follow a line. I really do recommend that you practice letter O's, like just circles, because it also does the same thing. You could practice the letter A in cursive because if you write the A, you go back and you go back around. Now here I'm doing what is called a shell, and the reason I'm creating this shell is I'm learning to see what it feels like to make the machine make rounded um, kind of designs because it's a different rhythm. And the reason you want to learn how to do shells on a domestic machine, and that's what I learned on my long arm. So I'm telling you what I did on my long arm, and now I'm transferring it into my quilting on a domestic. Once you learn how to do this, if you know how to do really pretty shells, you're able to quilt feathers because a feather is kind of a variation of a shell that just has an arc or an angle in it. So here I am quilting, and this is probably one of my first feather motifs on this piece of fabric, and you can see that I'm having a hard time in making that rounded design. And here I'm trying a different way, like following the arc way instead of following the stem way. And I'm having issues with how to control the fabric. And this is good. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. There's a lot of learning when you're learning a new skill. And what I'm having an issue with is as I'm learning this new skill, I'm learning that my mind can't work on the whim. So what I decided to do is I decided to draw on a feather. Here you see me following that feather and following that drawn line, and I noticed that this really helped me extremely. And the reason it helped me a lot is it helped me kind of just slow down. I think it helped me just figure out how to quilt on the domestic machine when I had a drawn item on there. So initially, I do recommend that if you're going to do your arc or your C curves or any lettering that you want to practice initially for your warm up, that you draw it. It really makes your mind kind of settle down and learn to follow the line. Initially, like little kids, they have the drawn and then you follow and trace. And I really recommend that kind of process when you're learning how to do quilting on a domestic machine. And so here you see me that my feathers are a lot cleaner, my line is a lot better because I'm not figuring out how to put it on the machine. I'm just following the line. And as I'm following the line, I'm also learning the speed of what I should have my domestic machine. I'm also learning how the machine is working to create all those stitches. I'm also getting a rhythm of it. I'm learning my hand placement. I mean, there's some things that come with learning on a domestic machine. Also, I learned that Lorena cannot be in a hurry like she normally is, trying to hurry up and do this. I learned that I had to really be calmer and just enjoy the time to do this. And I really do recommend this if you're a person that needs something that releases some stress. I think this is one of the greatest tools because hearing the machine and you moving your fabric very slowly and keeping the needle in a consistent rhythm was really helpful for me. I even got to a point that I enjoyed the the quilting process. I really started enjoying myself. And so here you see me finishing a feather, that pretty decent looking feather for my first day or really my first hour. And so here you see me, I got excited and I drew another one. And remember we were telling you this, I was telling you to do shells because initially that's the inside foundation, but really a feather is a variation of a shell. And so if you know how to do a shell, you'll probably more likely be able to do the feather prongs because it's the same rhythm. And so here you see me going and following, and you see me really slow down. And the neat part of slowing down is when I went back over that arc or that line that I already quilted, you really do see a consistent straight line. And I'm going to do it right here. And I noticed that I did that by just slowing myself down. And now you don't see that variation or that wobbling that I was doing initially. And I really enjoyed this process. And so we're going to go into another area of the video after I'm finished with this feather where I decided to see, okay, now that I've practiced this drawn, can I practice it without drawing it and just quilt on the whim? Because as I was doing this, I started getting the rhythm. My mind started connecting on how everything worked. And you could see that I was understanding what my hands needed to do and what the speed of the machine needed to be. So here you see me trying to do a feather without any drawn lines. What I wanted to see is if I could, now that I've learned some of the process of how to slow down and how to follow a consistent line and also the rhythm of the machine, now I wanted to see if I could just randomly draw a feather. Because a lot of my quilting is really like on the whim. Just I like just the process of trying out how it feels. So I wanted to see if I could do this on the domestic. Initially, when I first did, you saw in the video, you saw that I didn't do very well. And so I do recommend following and drawing lines and then learning to follow the lines as you're doing this. And so here I am just randomly trying to make feathers, and they're not perfect, but I also have seen what a wonderful improvement that just following the line and practicing really has made. And now I have some benefits. I do feathers and I do long arm quilting, and that does benefit me in being able to do feathers maybe quicker than someone else. But I really want to recommend this process. It's a lot of fun, it's very therapeutic. and I really enjoyed it. And I think there's this lady, her name is Leah Day. Has a YouTube channel and it's called Leah Day. She does domestic quilting every week, and I really do think that to get my zen going, I'm gonna start doing some of her videos and practice more. And so I'm gonna show you some panels of my initial first practices. I promise this is my first time, and you're going to just see great improvement as you just do this. And I recommend you practice maybe twice a week for an hour, and then you'll see such a great improvement of the process of domestic quilting. I hope you like this video. And I thank you guys for watching and subscribing. Have a wonderful day.